What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This episode number 664. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, he's back. It's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, you've had a heck of a run the past few weeks, and now you're not feeling great today, too.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot, but here I am. I'm back on the show. I was told that any further PTO would be denied by the show management. So,
oh, Jeff said that to you?
Yeah.
Producer Jeff drives a very hard bargain. He does not mess around. Well, I'm really glad you're back, Luis. Even if, you had the whole basement flood thing and travel plans canceled. You really had a heck of a run this last month. I'm glad you're starting to come out of it on the other side here.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
And we've got a fun show to bring you back on as well. We're going to be doing some vintage cube draft today on the show. We've got actually a lot of things to cover for the show. We're going to be going over Baldur's Gate. We're going to be doing some of the takeaways. Decided not to do a full Sunset show on it. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we've also got a preview card that I put up on Twitter last week. And we're going to talk about our preview card. And then we're going to do cube draft walkthrough as well, because these are, of course, an important part of the limited life cycle these days. And we'll talk about that in just a bit too. Before we get into our main topic, though, let's talk about our sponsors, channelfireball.com, place to go for everything you need magical. That's right. You can still get cards or supplies, sealed product, whatever it is you need over at channelfireball.com. And while you're there, you can check out awesome content. There's free side and a CFB Pro side. You can choose which one suits you the best. If you want to really up your game, if you're really trying to improve and get into the nitty gritty, put in that work, that you do it, you make that sacrifice, you read all this stuff, you watch the videos, you study, but then all of a sudden you start winning a little bit more, you start getting your confidence going, that whole type of thing. You can get some really good info at CFB Pro. That is a fantastic place to help up your game. Make sure you check them out. If you do pick up anything over at Channel Fireball, if you use the affiliate code LR at checkout, we do appreciate it. Show is also brought to you by FTX. That's the safe, regulated place to manage your digital assets. If you are looking to do so, ftx.us here in the United States and ftx.com outside is the place to go to do that. There's been major shakeups in that space, and this is pretty typical for new technologies when they come out to kind of have a reckoning at some point. It seems to be happening right now, and this is where the dust settles. This is where we kind of see what's real and what use cases and stuff people come up with in the real world to use for the type of technologies on these platforms. And if you're interested in that, if you want to see where this is all going and maybe even want to get involved, FTX is the place to go. As I mentioned before, it's ftx.us in the United States. And if you're outside the US, it's just ftx.com. There's an app and a website. I will remind you, though, that it is a form of investing and you want to consult an investment professional before doing investment of any kind, as there, of course, is going to be risk involved. Thanks, FTX. Also, the show's brought to you by you via the Patreon. It's patreon.com/limited resources. If you want to support what we do here on the show, our goal is to try to get you better at Magic, specifically Limited. And you even get a little dose of life advice in there every once in a while, too. Maybe some cooking, stuff like that. On our Q&A episodes, that's a popular topic, for example. And if you're interested in supporting us directly, it's patreon.com/limited resources. Everybody who signs up gets a sticker and a thank you card in the mail, and we thank everybody who does so. There's also the Patreon question of the week, and I've got a really nice one here, Luis, for us. This is actually a genius or grifter. So this one comes from our friend Matej Zadelkai, who, of course, you have a storied competitive history with, as you faced off against him in your first Pro Tour finals, right?
Yep, I played Matej, also known as Big Z. That was his nickname for a while. We played in the finals of Pro Tour Berlin. We were playing the Elb's Mirror, and my draws were just maybe close to the best I had in the entire tournament. It was not a very close finals, I got to admit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I've done coverage with him in the booth before and stuff, and he's just a big part of the Magic community, specifically over in Europe there, where he's from. But he's got a sweet genius or grifter that popped up on Twitter. He says, thoughts on today's situation. Okay. Your opponent just sacked his whole board to create a lethal attacker. I play a lethal deflecting palm, choosing that creature, and he responds by casting Tamiyo's Safekeeping on his creature and looks at me. Is this shady or legit? Or another way to put it, would it be genius or grifter? Now, do you want to explain the context here on these cards, Luis? Yeah.
For sure. So Deflecting Palm says that you choose a source. The next time that source deals damage to you, it deals damage to your opponent. It's not targeted. When it resolves, you just choose a source. Tamiyo Safekeeping on that creature would give that creature hexproof, but it actually wouldn't interact with Deflecting Palm at all. And Deflecting Palm is a card that has led to a lot of situations like this. It's just a really weird card because it doesn't have targets. So this is not the first or last time we're going to hear this sort of thing. But basically what's happening is, Matei has a lethal Deflecting Palm and their opponent's playing a card that doesn't stop it, but to some players, clearly not the best thing to try against someone who's got, Pro Tour top 8s to their name, a seasoned pro player. Right. But there are some players who would see the hexproof, Tamiyo Safekeeping and be like, oh, dang, I guess I lose. And there's actually even a slight follow-up. Matei says, for additional context, I respond by saying, so you're dead, because, that's what would happen. And the opponent says, yeah, I guess. So
very muddy waters here.
This gets one of the so this is I would say it's closer to grifter than anything else. It's a legal play to cast Tamiyo Safekeeping, though. It's actually funny in the wording of the tweet. Matei says choosing a creature, and then they respond by casting Tamiyo Safekeeping. Technically, once the creature is chosen, that means Deflecting Palm has resolved. That
is right. It is chosen upon resolution in this case.
So that's even like, I don't know if you remember on Twitter, someone was asking like a while ago, like if my opponent's playing Hostile Takeover and I try to respond before they choose which of their creatures. Yeah. Can I I interrupt them before they choose their creature? Can I make them not choose their own creature? And it's like, no, you can't stop your opponent and do something in the middle of them resolving a spell.
Right.
So let's just say, for the situation's sake, that the opponent responded, you cast Deflecting Palm, and I'm like, all right, well, in response, I'll Tamiyo Safekeeping. Let's say you're even only attacking with one creature, a 10/10, right? There's no ambiguity there. That would still, I think, be closer to grifter. Like, look, you can make that play. You're allowed to make that play, and that play it's not illegal, but it's not genius, and I would steer listeners away from trying to do too much of that, because these are kind of like gateway plays. I'm not saying the person who does this is going to then straight up cheat, but you're trying to angle shoot really severely here, and I don't think that that's a good way to play the game.
Yeah, and this to me, again, correcting for the part that you said, because as you said, if this is played straight up by the rules, once you choose the creature, it's over. The spell's resolved. But in this case, this is, to me, an absolute textbook perfect example of what we call angle shooting. This is exactly, it can be hard to come up with examples where you say, well, it was an angle shot. And somebody says, well, what do you mean by that? And it's like, well, a thing you're allowed to do, but that like isn't really on the up and up. Right. And, that's sort of a vague, just like, is it cheating or not? Right. If I'm allowed to do it, then why wouldn't I do it? Right. But the problem is that, and the shorthand that I like to use for situations like this are, if everybody did this, if this just became the norm, right? Not some crafty play by like an experienced whatever. People use all these crazy words to describe this kind of bad behavior or whatever, that it's crafty or ingenious or something like that. But what if just everybody was constantly doing this, just constantly testing everybody all the time for, card interaction knowledge, or for understanding how the stack works, or for, this stuff? Because there's an absolute scenario here, and I think you recognized it in your description too, Luis, which is that the person doesn't know. Like, they go, oh yeah, Deflecting Palm, that's the one that like takes the thing that's going to hurt you and hurts me instead, right? Yeah, okay, well, I'm going to use Tamiyo Safekeeping, and just literally runs that out there as, I got you, I win. You tried hard, and then Matei gets to say, okay, well, you need to read Deflecting Palm again because it doesn't do what you think. It doesn't target. right? And the person goes, oh my God, like I didn't even know, right? And they go, wow, you got me, good game. And that's like a totally, that's probably happened thousands of times with deflecting palmer cards like it, right? So it's like, yeah, we don't know that here, right? And the follow-up part kind of addresses that when he says, yeah, I guess. You know, it's like, if the person didn't know,
they're trying to get away with something.
Right. They would say, well, wait a minute, what? You know, and you'd have a conversation. But it is interesting because I just wouldn't want to play, you know, if this was the type of thing that was really being tested when you played Magic, right? Just like every little nuanced interaction of every little thing. Look, if I'm playing at the pro level, here's the question I have. Would you call a judge in a situation like this?
I don't know. It depends how annoyed at my opponent I am. Basically, were I to call a judge in a situation like this, it would be because I wanted to kind of get it on the record, like, hey, my opponent's trying some stuff. You know, I don't like it. I'm in a different, you know, place than a lot of players are at this point, right? Like I'm very confident. I know all this stuff, and I have no real fear of these situations. That was not always me, of course. At one point, I was like the newer player or the person playing their first pro tour or whatever. And people also, because of who I am, don't tend to pull the stuff on me very often. Like I'm sure it happened to Matei because, you know, despite you can even see him holding like a GP trophy up in his profile picture. Like he's been around the block, a very experienced player. That said, the way that organized play has been the last 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised if his opponent didn't know that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, people don't try this stuff on me because I think most of my opponents are aware that like this is not really going to fly. But if they did, I would berate them. You know,
right?
Like,
right.
If it's like, come on, what are you trying to do here? Like, this isn't cool. And you know, I mean, you see me when I get annoyed at this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
it's a different. I mean, it is a sight to see. Luis does not, you know, Luis can be pretty deferential. He's generally a really nice guy, but yeah, not that you're like you don't swear, but like there's no. You're very direct. Like, it's like, hey, I'm not putting up with this. Like, this is a line that we're not going to cross here. You know, it's very, very clear when you're upset about it.
I mean, one of the times when I did kind of have this happen was at a pro tour in Hawaii where Alex Bertoncini tried to cheat against Chion.
I remember.
And
I remember really upset,
going off on him because it's just like, dude, you're trying to cheat like my best friend.
Right.
And this is also someone who's, you know, you don't have to really go into it, but Alex has been banned for cheating more times than most people have done anything. So
right, exactly.
It's truly ridiculous.
Yeah, really good one though from Matei here. An interesting situation. The one thing that I think about the judge call aspect of it is that I like what you said, where you said, well, I want to get it on the record. And I think that as we transition back to tabletop play, this type of stuff becomes something to consider a little more important, since we didn't have to deal with it at all for the online play era of, you know, high level Magic. But this is a thing where people will. This is probably the broadest category of cheaters. You know, most people think of cheaters as people who are like sneaking cards in their sleeves or their laps, or, you know, doing some shuffle tricks and stuff. And by the way, that has happened too. that is not a zero.
Yeah, those aren't the people you should be as afraid of. The people you're afraid of is exactly, I think, what you're about to describe. The people who don't take damage off their pain lands, or when you put your 3/3 in the graveyard after they, you know, blocked it with a 2/2, they don't say anything, because those cheats are like almost uncatchable in the sense that if it's pointed out, both players missed it. Well, they didn't actually miss it, but you know, they just took advantage, and that's the sort of thing you really got to watch out for. Yeah,
and what I try to do is pin people down in that spot. Like, for example, let's take this one here, where somebody's playing some deck where they have to sack their whole board. I assume Affinity or something like that, right? To make some big lethal attacker. And, you know, let's say that, you know, they've got all the really sweet versions of the card and they're clearly competent with the deck, right? And those type of decks are actually really difficult to play too. They force you to make decisive maneuvers that are very unforgiving. So you really have to know your stuff to play decks like Affinity and that Hardened Scales and stuff like that. And let's say that this situation comes up and the opponent goes, oh, I got the Tamiyo safekeeping, so I guess I got you. And you just look at them and you say, well, no, you don't, because of, you know, how Deflecting Palm works. And then they're like, oh, I always forget, or I didn't know that, or wow, good game. And they move on. That should stand out to you as like, well, hold on a second. Like, you've played this deck all the time. You've never ran into this interaction. Like, you don't know Like, I don't buy that. Right.
Right.
Same thing with like, oh, I tap these 4 lands, I'll play this card. And you look and you go, wait a minute, that costs double white. You don't have double white. Oh, I know. I got up late today. I haven't had my coffee. I'm so sorry. Haven't you ever done that? That happens all the time. You know, these are people that are very willing to be smooth talkery. And I'll tell you, who hasn't done that, right? On accident, right? Like they're leaning on the fact that you're going to be kind to them and say, you know, but what should happen is you're supposed to call a judge, even if they're the nicest person in the world, and just say, we rewound it and it's fixed, but this happened. And the judge can make a little mark. And when those little marks add up enough, you can get a pattern going. Anyway, great genius or grifter, Matej, and thanks for letting us steal it for the show. Okay, let's talk about our preview card for Dominaria United. We got a rare this time, Luis. It's called Keldon Flame Sage. And this one is 2 and a red for a 2/3 human shaman, but it's got enlist. And this is a new mechanic just for Dominaria. So here's what the card does. It says, whenever Keldon Flame Sage attacks, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is Keldon Flame Sage's power. You may exile an instant or sorcery card with mana value X or less from among them. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. And to describe what enlist does, it allows you to tap a creature that doesn't have summoning sickness when you attack with an enlist creature to give it its power, basically.
Right.
So this thing starts off at 2 power. So even if you don't have any enlistable things going, you just attack with it, you get to flip the top card of your library and maybe get to cast an instant or sorcery for free. But then if you pump it up, you could, and it's a cheap instant or sorcery for free. But if you can do the enlist thing, all of a sudden it's slamming, and you can really potentially get yourself some awesome free spells, cost, 4, maybe 5 mana, something like that off the top of your library.
This thing scales up really well because at base, you look at the top 2 and play a card that costs 1 or 2. Imagine you tapped a 2/2. Now it looks at 4 and can play 1 through 4. So like every single additional power it gets a lot more likely you're casting a spell because it helps in both directions. So
cool. I mean, this card's great. The question I had was, do you consider this a build around or just a throw into any deck with red?
I think you would probably throw this into any deck with red because I don't exactly know how good Enlist is quite yet, but a 3 mana 2/3 that lets you tap something and attack as like a 5/6, for example. Does Enlist give power and toughness or just power?
Just power?
Okay, well, the 3 mana 2/3 that attacks as like a 5/3 can like make use of things, and plus any deck's gonna have like 5 spells, 6 spells or something. It's kind of hard to have no spells. So once you're tapping a 4/4 and all of a sudden you're looking at your top 6 and playing any spell from them, like that's a pretty strong ability. There's a reason this card's rare.
Yeah. Also, it just hits hard at some point, right? I mean, even if you're only tapping a 2 or 3 power creature sitting for 4 or 5, the next turn it attacks and it has 3 toughness. They could have made this a 2/2. This is a 2/3. You're not going to be trading this thing off with your bears. So I think we have a really powerful card. If you do lean into building around it a little bit, then it gets kind of stupid. But I think you can just run it no matter what. I mean, if you hit 1 card over the course of the game at all, you're good to go. And it's certainly going to be trading nicely as well with 3 power and hopefully, or excuse me, 3 toughness and a bunch of power. All right, so there's Keldon Flame Sage. We'll be doing, of course, more Dominaria United content as the cards come. Hopefully, set review next week. So going now back a little bit to Baldur's Gate Limited. So it kind of blindsided us in a way. I didn't fully process how long it would actually be that Streets of New Capenna was the set that was out, that it would be months and months and months, the whole entire summer, right? I mean, that set, which incidentally was not, it was one of the lowest graded ones that we've had, again, from us, since we've been doing these. We gave it, probably realistically one of the lowest grades that we can, which these days, given how these sets are made, which was a C. And, we had it for the longest that I think we've ever had a set be the main set since I've been playing. Like, I don't think it was released April 29th. It is August 25th at the time of this recording.
Really brutal combination of format that was less replayable, I think, than a lot of the ones they've had, and yet also stuck around for the longest. It's not where you want to be.
No. And so anyway, so when so that happened, but then kind of in the middle of it, right, we had Baldur's Gate come out, and it was like, it felt like one of those offshoot kind of not really for us, type of things. And then it was like, oh no, this is going to be the main draft format on Arena, not in real life, but on Arena. And so Luis and I did the set primer show for it and did a bunch of shows about the format because it was kind of the main thing going online. So that seemed fine. But I gotta say, like, now that it's sort of wrapping up, I don't really feel any, like, it still doesn't feel like a real set to me. A lot of the cards, a huge chunk of the cards were reprints from AFR. So that has a big impact on it too. There's just like a lot of the same stuff. Also, AFR was, core set plus, like it was leaning much closer to core set than to like a true expert set. And so if you port over a whole bunch of cards from it, not only are these kind of basic cards that we already know, they're also cards that we've played with extensively. So it's like kind of a double whammy to have a whole bunch of basic kind of boring cards brought over that we've already played into the ground. So that didn't make me feel particularly endeared to it. And then it wasn't super great on top of that too, in that it had these balance issues, particularly with blue, but did have some cool stuff too. They rebalanced in the middle of it, and it was also arena only, designs and stuff in limited. So I thought what we would do here is, I just don't really want to do like a full sunset on it. I just never felt like this show hit, and it just, this set really hit for me, or even in the community. And I don't want to fake it. I don't want to be like, oh, let's talk about our favorite. I don't really have favorite cards from this set that really stand out. And so what we're going to do instead is, just like that we didn't do a full card by card set review, we're not going to do a full sunset, but we are going to do some takeaways from it, because I think there are some interesting topics to talk about as we say goodbye to Baldur's Gate. So we're just going to dive into those. So the first one is, I've got some questions. These are kind of, put them out into the world questions, and I want your take on them, of course, Luis, which is, first off, did making a digital set using some new digital-only designs mixed with a bunch of boring reprints work? Is this a formula we'd want to see repeated?
So this is tough. I think that the set Baldur's Gate kind of it was lacking in some of the places that you definitely said, right? It didn't feel like a real set. It wasn't something we loved. And it's a little hard to drill down on, like, okay, is this because the set itself wasn't good? Is it because the whole digital conceit wasn't good? I'm not ready to say that, like, digital mechanics don't work, for example. Mm-hmm. But I do think that Baldur's Gate didn't feel real, right? It didn't feel like a real set.
No.
I didn't play it and think like, wow, this is awesome. I want to do more of this. So I think that it really didn't grab us. And I think it was a combination, and it's hard to drill down exactly. My suspicion is a combination of, if the set was more fun, if the design was better, right? If it was better for limited, we would look at it more kindly and think, okay, this was pretty cool. I'd like to see this again. I actually still would like to see this again. I'm not ruling it out. But I do think that digital sets that with this big digital component have a higher bar to clear, because they don't feel real. There's a lot of players who are like, oh, that's the fake arena set. Oh, I'm not going to, I'm not going to play that. That doesn't seem like the thing I want to do. Yeah. So if the set is just amazing on top of that, then, then you're able to, like, kind of fight against that, and people will be like, oh, this is actually pretty sweet. I think I'm in for this. But it wasn't amazing. And not a good time to not be amazing, Right.
I was hoping that the formula would show a lot of promise. Like, if they could, because I assume that the level of design effort is lower when you bring in this many reprints, right? I mean, it's just, you just take a huge load off, right? But I'm also was thinking like, okay, so they take a smaller team perhaps, but they put extra effort into limited only or online only designs, right? Digital designs. And then they leverage an asset that they already have, which are reprints cards from other sets that they can bring in. I was hoping that formula would show a lot of promise. Like, okay, fine. This one, it didn't really hit because, well, particularly they were AFR reprints, which are like kind of the bottom of the barrel reprints for the reasons I said earlier. But, that doesn't mean you couldn't take reprints from whatever, all the sets in standard or all the sets ever, whatever they see fit to just pluck a bunch of cards and kind of stick them together. But at least from this experience, I don't feel like they have I don't think the formula is really working super well. It felt you could feel that it was reprints with digital designs. Like the digital designs had like 6 versions and all this crazy stuff going on. And the other one was like vanilla or it had trample or something. And you're like, well, the juxtaposition between those, it was pretty palpable when you were actually playing. So I think they'd have to tweak the formula to make it work. I mean, not to be too negative either. Set worked. It was fine. I drafted it a fair bit, not as much as I would normally, but like it kind of shows that they can, kind of jam a bunch of cards together and it's still draft and it's still a thing. It just lacks some of the polish I think that we normally get.
And I think another thing to kind of speak to is this was coming off of a set that wasn't great, New Capenna, and there was no other set. This took the place of that set. So that's kind of a rough place to start, right?
Mm-hmm. Very.
Like there's a lot of things stacked up against the Baldur's Gate, and I kind of don't blame the set itself for having some of these issues.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I'm not, and I don't even hate it. I just am going like, yeah, it just didn't click. There wasn't, the timing felt bad. The opportunity timing wasn't really good. Like, I don't know, just too many things didn't quite come together to make me excited about it, either as a set or as a potential, way to do sets in the future, or, gap sets, things that fill in the gaps, that type of thing. What about no summer set? Like having this pushed back by whatever it's being pushed by.
I really don't like it. I think that this has been kind of a low period for limited for me. Like, yeah, I played a bunch of Baldur's Gate, but by the time they rebalanced it, I just wasn't interested in playing.
Right.
Like I didn't play more of it. Mm-hmm. And, especially now that like Cube's out or whatever. And I would have much rather had a summer set instead. That would have been vastly preferable for me.
Yeah. I mean, we will get our payoff over the next few months when we get 2 sets in sort of short order. And then whatever plans they have around doing that will come into view for us. And maybe we'll say, okay, this was pretty awesome. But I mean, the last time when they grouped them last year, when they grouped them a little closer than normal, it just felt like we didn't get enough time with one set and too much time with the other. And I suspect that'll feel like that now, at least for us limited players. Big thing. They tried mid-season adjustments to the format, and by most indicators, it worked. I had Sutcliffe on last week, and, by the numbers, there were great improvements to the balance of the format and that type of stuff. But going back to what you just said a second ago, Luis, like as a customer, right, as like a player of the game, and not if we take off our game designer hat and our pro magic hat and our whatever, like was it compelling to us that they made that change in the middle of the format?
Not super.
Not really, right? I don't know why. I wanted that. That was something that I thought would be cool, but I basically did a couple of drafts after they did it just to try it. And I like once a cube showed up, I'm like, done.
I don't think that we're necessarily the best example here because I think that for me, it was like I had already kind of like it wasn't enough to pull me back in when I'd already decided I was done. Mm-hmm. So I think that is a potential thing that can just happen. Yeah. Whereas I think that for a lot of people it would have been enough to make them come back.
Yeah, so, I'm curious to see if they continue that. If
I don't think the timing was necessarily terrible.
Yeah, I wonder if they continue to do mid-season like in spots where it makes sense, or even more like the other thing, of course, they could do is rolling adjustments. Like after week 1, we've noticed some of stuff, we're going to change it, and I think that like experienced limited players would be against that. Like you have to give these formats a chance to, self-correct. But if it becomes clear that the format cannot, that's, I think, a good time to step in. But at any rate, somehow, like, it seems like a good thing and a good step, but it just wasn't really that compelling as a customer. One interesting space that they didn't explore yet, but I'm curious about is, do we see room for like a fully digital set from top to bottom that has limited specific digital mechanics built in? Like, I mean, you could do a lot, right? Like, you could mess with the draft pick options, right? We've had draft specific subsets that have come out that had stuff that happened during the draft where you could like exchange a card or, get two picks
Cogwork librarian type of stuff, like in Conspiracy.
Right. And even thinking in real life, some people in their cube have booster tutor.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Right. And so you get to like go for another, and these are the types of cards, like they could do that in digital quite easily, right? Maybe some stuff specific to cards with 40 card libraries, or I don't know, 17 lands in the deck or whatever, right? If you run more than 17 lands in your deck, you get this. Just stuff that's aimed at specifically limited digital designs. Is there space for this? Is there room? Do we see this happening?
Yeah, I think that that could be awesome. Part of it too is, as you kind of alluded to earlier, they didn't spend the most design resources on this set.
Right.
Like they could have invested more in the set. I mean, part of maybe doing the set was trying to find out, okay, can we do this with fewer resources? Because as a business, obviously that's great, right? If you can make a quality product without using a ton of resources, like you're going to be really happy. Mm-hmm. But what would it look like if they put more, into the design and publishing of the set? Yeah, maybe that would be awesome. I don't see a reason why a fully digital set couldn't be really cool,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seems like there's so much room to play with, particularly in the draft, where there, you can do some crazy stuff in there that you couldn't do in real life. Switching cards, switching players' spots, stealing a pick from somebody. Like, there's all types of crazy stuff you could put into that aspect of the game. I hope they do explore that space. I'd be curious just to see. I don't really like to predict whether I'd like it or not, because there's some stuff that I thought that I'd really want, and then when it came, it was like, okay. And I don't know, that might be the case here. How do we feel about having one set online, in this case, like Baldur's Gate, and another set in real life at the same time as the main draft format for the majority of players? It messes us up, like as content creators making a podcast where some portion of your audience is still just, going to the card shop and drafting Streets of New Capenna, and the others are drafting this crazy limited, digital only limited format. And it's like, how do we, manage that? Okay, fine. It's tough for us, but how do we feel about it in general?
I generally think that options are good, so it's not terrible that's the way it turns out. But I do think it can be a little strange.
Yeah, because the vibe I get is that, I don't know if this is me projecting, but is that people tend to draft one format at a time, rather than like skipping or like, when I talk to people, they're kind of like, what's the draft format going? And like when they switch over to Cube, for example, they usually don't go back, right? It's not like they're like, oh, I'll do a Cube today and I'll do a flashback tomorrow. And then later this afternoon, I'll just go back to the set that's here. I know there are some people that do that. They'll kind of just bounce around, but I don't know. I've always gotten the vibe that people kind of want to find a home in a draft format. And when it's time to move on, they leave it behind them and they go to the next thing, and then they don't really go back.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was how some people kind of approached it. I don't know that it's necessarily,
I'm curious,
terrible that it's like that, but
yeah, no, I don't think it's terrible either. You want to give this thing a grade?
Baldur's Gate. Or I guess Battle for Baldur's Gate, Horizons Alchemy, Battle for Baldur's Gate. I think that's the full shebang.
Yeah.
If I had to give this a grade,
I think we should grade it under the idea that they're trying something new, right? So like, this is a lot of territory that they hadn't gone into before. They did digital only cards in a draft set. They did part reprints, part digital only, and they did a mid-season correction, we'll call it. That's a lot to bite off in one set that kind of felt like it was supposed to be secondary to the main product, and it just, for us limited players, wasn't.
Yeah, I would probably give it
Because
like a
I'd give it a
C.
D myself, like if
Okay.
just in a vacuum, but I would bump it up a little bit because of the level of difficulty and what it was trying to do. If it was an optional set that I didn't feel like was the main thing going, I would be a lot more forgiving, but like there's big pressure, right? If there's a month plus of time where this is your prime digital arena option for drafting, like it's got to be better than this. You know, I just think that it was too far out of balance. It was too risky to try all this stuff. I commend them for taking that risk, but I mean, the set kind of wasn't that great. Like it was hard to get into. I didn't really understand it at first. Then they did the mid-season change, which was a good thing, but also like threw another curveball. And just what ended up in my hands, I would give a D.
Yeah, I guess if you put it, if you look at the weight it's supposed to carry, I think a D is probably in line for like the disappointment that we have felt like. And that part of it is not like necessarily Baldur's Gate's fault. Like it didn't make New Capenna worse. It didn't choose it. Like the people who made it weren't necessarily like responsible for the fact that it was the only new limited offering for months. So once you factor those in, I mean, more expectations means that you do grade a little higher.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a temptation, I think, for you and I, Luis, because we're kind of deep on Magic, right? We like see a lot of the background stuff as far as like, you work in game design and game development and all this type of stuff that, we are ultimately still end of the line customers though, right? That like, did you like this product? Did it work for you? My answers are not really, right?
Yeah.
More nuanced.
Ultimately, I think that's the answer.
Right. And it's like, I don't know that we need to like, like that's the bottom line, right? But like if I wanted to add nuance, and I do, I would say, but I'm glad that they took the shot even if they missed a little bit, because I feel like they'll learn from this. They'll say, here's what we liked about what we did. We liked the mid-season change. We liked that we nailed the mid-season change, and like the changes we made actually did the thing that we wanted to do. And they probably learned a lot from that. And we like that we took some risk, right? That we tried something different, that we pushed a boundary to see what's there. Takeaways though, number one, it was too much pressure on this set, as there was too big of a focal on it. It needed to be a secondary product that you could do if you wanted to try out, and not the main draft format for a significant period of time. And they're going to have to bite the bullet and put more design work into new cards, or be more open about taking cards from other formats or whatever, and not, porting over as many reprints. I think that like that corner, while it's very tempting to cut that corner and maybe be able to make compelling stuff for less effort, it just felt, at least in this case, that it didn't quite get there. But anyway, but as a product, it didn't really click with me. I don't know. If they said, hey, it's Alchemy, Baldur's Gate, Horizons, whatever Masters coming out, next year, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Right. But like, compare this to when they first came out with Modern Masters, right? I was like, wow, this is insane. This is a home run. And when they said, we're going to do more of these, I was like, in the queue, sign me up. I want to, whatever it is that you put out to follow up this thing, the Modern Masters set, I'm in. Because they just did such a great job of putting that set together, even though, it had its own similarities where it wasn't like the main thing. So that's Baldur's Gate. But one thing that happens a lot that we like to talk about, we try to kind of keep ourselves at bay at least a little bit, is Cube, right? But Cube is a really important part of the limited player ecosystem, especially if you play a lot online. And so for some people in real life as well, it's their main interaction with limited. But online, the general pattern is new set comes out, everybody's excited, you dive in, set reviews, initial impressions, all this stuff's happening, and you kind of sort it out and you get to play it for some period of time. For some people, it's a week. For people like us, it's usually more like a month and a half, maybe even longer. And then at some point, you get into that area where you're like, well, I could definitely keep playing this set, but I wouldn't mind playing something else. And at that point, a cube arrives. There's an arena cube. There's one on Magic Online. And for many people, it's cube season now. And even though that isn't as long as the main sets, that's the thing that bridges you to the next one. And that's been my pattern for years now, right? That's what I do now is, when I start thinking about cube, I know I'm just about done with the set that's going.
Yeah, when cube pops up, and they also time it right. Cube is almost never up right when a set is coming out.
That's right.
They don't want to eat their own lunch, right? There's no real reason to do that. Cube is popular whenever you put it up. Don't put it up against something that won't be popular, a month in or 6 weeks in or whatever.
Right.
And so when cube, it's both. We're reaching the end of our line when cube comes up, but also they put it out at that time knowing that. So when cube comes up, it's like, oh, yeah, it's time to do the retreat back into cube until the next big set comes out.
Yeah, and it's perfect because it keeps cube fresh. If it was up 24/7, there is a chance that it would be like, I've kind of done that too much, and then of course they also will refresh the cube with changes occasionally too. So with that in mind, we wanted to do our draft walkthrough for this cycle, but we're going to do it in cube this time. And we're going to start off with vintage cube. And Luis, I'm going to give you final say on any pick because I know what I like to draft very well. And I've drafted the vintage cube, hundreds and hundreds of times. And you have a wider range than I do about some of the stuff that you like to do. And I think it's always a good learning opportunity to watch somebody else draft specifically cube because there are so many different routes to victory and so many different interactions and combos and stuff that you can get into a rut where you kind of take the same types of cards every time. So I'm going to give you what you say is what we're going to end up picking, even though I happen to be steering the ship. Okay.
And you have to play the deck.
And I will be playing the deck. Yeah. So
just to be clear.
Yeah, I very much may regret that, but I'm just jumped in the queue here on Magic Online. And there's 5 players in there. And again, this is vintage cube. This is the cube to end all cubes. This is a powered cube with Black Lotus, Mox, and all of that stuff in here. And let's see what we open up. Luis, can you see my screen? I hope you can.
Oh, I sure can.
Okay. So we've got our opening pack, and cube has too many cards for us to just pick out 2 that stand out, So we have a channel in our opening. We've also got some nice lands with Badlands, Tropical Island, Fiery Islet, and Wooded Foothills. There's Days
and Fact or Fiction. In this iteration of the cube, so now all the triomes are in, right? Mm-hmm. So you have and the tri-lands from New Capenna. I used to have Tropical Island above Wooded Foothills. Now I would take Wooded Foothills over Trop if I were to take a land, just because being able to, once you get a triumph, all of a sudden Wooded Foothills becomes 3 or 4 colors of lands just with those 2 lands right there, right? Imagine, you've got a Savai triumph, white, black, red. Now all of a sudden Wooded Foothills gets white, black, red, green.
Yeah,
so
it's incredible.
Really powerful. I would either take Wooded Foothills or Channel. Channel is higher payoff, but obviously much riskier. You have to get stuff that goes with it. You have to be in a deck that can generate double green early, but also has a combo element. I think I'd probably just Wooded Foothills here. It's a nice safe pick.
Okay, so we take Wooded Foothills. Next pack has
nothing.
It has nothing. Wow, this is a bad pack. Everflowing Chalice, Scavenging Ooze, 1,000-Year Storm, Collective Brutality, some Mana Tithe, Arbor Elf.
I think the probably best card is just to take Arbor Elf. It's a 1-drop elf. You can kind of steer into mono green. Probably what I would take here is this is really uninspiring pack 2. And even if you wanted something like Niv Mizzet Reborn for the 5-color deck, you're going to wheel it in a lot of the cases, though this pack is pretty weak.
Yeah.
Probably the other good card in the pack is Collective Brutality is a pretty strong card, but I would probably take Arbor Elf here. I think Arbor Elf is better. Okay. Given the first pick, Wooded Foothills.
Was Arbor Elf around in time for you to play it in your Pro Tour winning Elves deck?
It was not, no.
You were Arbor Elfless. Yeah, there's Phyrexian Revoker, Everflowing Chalice for colorless, if that's the type of thing that you're into. There's also a Yogg's Will, which can be important for bad decks, which Luis usually likes. There's also 1,000-Year Storm, which is proven really bad.
Not even good.
One of my favorite cards, Luis. You're going to have to...
What, Opposition?
Yeah.
I would take Misty Rainforest over Opposition. Just starting off with a couple fetches means the world is kind of our oyster here.
Yeah, so Misty Rainforest opposition in this pack. There's also, again, for colorless, there's Worn Power Stone, just sort of a generic ramp spell for colorless. Another card that does do well in this cube is Dismember, right? You can play it in any color, and it does kill a lot of important creatures. It's on the high end of spot removal if that's what you're in the market for.
Yeah, Dismember is really good. I just love fetch lands. Utopia Sprawl is also a really nice one. In fact, it combos with Arbor Elf. Not too likely that one comes back around, but if it does, we'd be pretty happy.
Yeah. Did you see Red Elemental Blast is in here?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that like Red Blast is in, but no other like Color Hoser is in really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. It's a good card. You can main deck it if you want. You can also sideboard it, and it's quite effective there. But it is a funny card to be in cube.
Another bad pack here. We open up Recurring Nightmare, Toxic Deluge, Crop Rotation, Pelucranos, Tar Pit, Sphinx of the Steelwood, Bitter Blossom, Crucible of Worlds. We do have 2 fetches.
So I don't think it's crazy to take either Crucible or Crop Rotation here. One of the recent additions, a couple iterations ago to the cube that I've really liked is the lands deck that has Dark Depths, Thespian Stage, Strip Mine, Life from the Loam, like that sort of thing. And Crop Rotation ends up being really strong if you end up with either Strip Mine plus ways to recur it or Depth Stage combo. On the other hand, Crucible is a little bit more consistent here, but I'd probably take Crop Rotation here. Okay. Set yourself up for success. The thing is, there's a lot of Crucible effects because there's Ramanop Excavator and Renin 6 and Light from the Loam. Crop Rotation is a very efficient tutor for a land if that's what you're going for. And look, there's Renin 6. Now I think I would just snap off the Renin 6 over like Cultivate or whatever.
I like where
really
this is going.
With this land start, yeah.
Yeah, this could be really cool if we can get some of the good stuff. Other cards in this pack, you mentioned Cultivate for the ramp. Again, colorless. I'm mentioning colorless just because we haven't really nailed a color down yet. There's a Mere Battlesphere, Whisperwood Elemental in green is the other green card in our color. But yeah, Ren and 6. For those that don't know, Ren and 6 is red-green for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker, and its +1 is return up to 1 target land card from your graveyard to your hand. So with 2 fetch lands, we can just loop those for a little bit of value, but it gets a lot better than that if you can get some of those cards that Luis mentioned earlier with regards to like Strip Mine and stuff like that. Ooh, here's another fetch land. We got Prismatic Vista.
Yeah, that's great. I would just take that. You're not really giving up much. You're giving up maybe the opportunity for a Woodfall Primus if you end up being like mono green with tutors, maybe a Grim Lavamancer. But yeah, easy Prismatic Vista, and you're really well set up to be some kind of lands amalgam here. Plus, you can also pretty easily cast cards of any color. You've straight up got Teamer fixing kind of naturally here, but I wouldn't be surprised if this deck could play 3, 4, 5 colors if it needed to. I don't know where it's going to end up.
Yeah. Yeah, Aura Shards is in this pack. That's a recent addition to the cube. Have you found that to be a good sideboard card?
No, I haven't been impressed. A 3-mana card that does nothing the turn you play it sometimes you play a creature after it, but it would need to kill like 3 things for me to be really happy about it, basically. Because at killing 2 things, you're still not in that great of. It's not been that great a card.
Next up, there's 1 land or 2 lands in the pack. It's Plateau and Academy Ruins. Colorless, there's a Gilded Lotus. There's Big Green Guy, Tovalar's Huntmaster, Night of Autumn.
I think for me it's between Plateau and Night of Autumn.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at too.
They're both pretty legit. Sun Titan's not crazy, but I think I'd probably just take Plateau here. It makes your Wooded Foothills into a white fetch as well. And this deck often wants to splash for like Knight of the Reliquary or Swords to Plowshares or Balance. Those are all cards that can work out kind of nicely in this style of deck.
Okay. Next card up, and by the way, this is our 8th pick. There's Concealed Courtyard is the only land. There's a Laelia, the Blade Reforged, which has been pretty good. Also Pest Infestation, which I found extremely annoying to play against, and there's an Embereth Shieldbreaker.
I would slam Laelia here. Laelia is just a busted card. 3-mana 2/2 haste. When it attacks, exile the top card of your deck. You can play it this turn, and then whenever a card goes to exile from your deck or graveyard, it gets a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah, so it's a 3/3 haste to start off with.
That draws you extra cards.
Right,
really
that
cool
just
card.
rips you cards the whole time. Here's the pack that we opened coming back around. There's Elspeth, Knight Errant, Runaway Steamkin, Light Up the Stage, Recruiter of the Guard, Hangerback Walker, Ravenous, Chupacabra, and Carrion Feeder still in the pack.
I would probably take Recruiter of the Guard and just kind of assume I'm not playing any of these cards, but it's possible you end up with enough creatures in your deck that Recruiter's good. Maybe, I mean, you can already get Lelia if you get like a Palace Jailer or something busted.
Right. Yeah.
The only alternative is Elspeth, and Elspeth Knight Errant is fine, but you kind of want to stay away from double white cards for the time being.
Next pack has Scavenging Ooze, that Niv Mizzet Reborn we mentioned, the Collective Brutality still there, Direfleet, Daredevil, Inkwell, Leviathan, and a Phyrexian Revoker.
Surprised Collective Brutality is still there. I think that card's really good, but I would take one of the 2-mana creatures. Honestly, any of them seem fine. Ooze is a good graveyard hate. Revoker can be good against people with a bunch of mana dorks or artifacts, and Direfleet's probably the weakest, even though it's really good against like some of the blue decks.
Yeah, I'll just take Scavenging Ooze then.
Yeah, I like it. Oh, wow, Utopia Sprawl did wheel. Okay,
so we've got a lot of colors available. To give you a recap, I'm going to read these in order. We took Wooded Foothills, Arbor Elf, Misty Rainforest, Crop Rotation, Red and 6, Prismatic Vista, Plateau, Lelia, Recruiter of the Guard, Scavenging Ooze, Utopia Sprawl. That's our deck right now.
Basically 4 lands and a Crop Rotation and a Ren and 6, and then a bunch of creatures.
Right. Next pack has Pelucranos, Bitter Blossom, Goblin Bombardment, and Tide Hollow Sculler.
I think at Pelucranos, it's more of a sideboard card than anything else, but against like the creature decks can be pretty good. And no, there's a Whisperwood, another extremely mediocre like 5-mana card here.
Yeah. And then we got Toski and Aura Shards as the last 2 cards.
Yes, I'd take Toski. I just don't think Aura Shards is very good.
Same. And then a last pick out of the first pack is Academy Ruins, which I don't think we're going to be playing. All right, let's open up our next pack and see what we've got. Any strip mines? No, doesn't look like it. We did pick up a Triland Spara's Headquarters. That's green, white, blue. There's also Windswept Heath, Courser of Crewfix, Hexdrinker, which has kind of gone up a little bit for me. I actually like that card now. There's a Worm Coil
Hexdrinker's been good. Mm-hmm. I think I'd lean towards Courser. Windswept Heath is the best land, but you already have 3 fetch lands. Like, you're doing really well on those.
Yeah.
And your colors aren't such a big issue because your fetches kind of naturally fix for the colors you're looking at. So I don't think you need to take Spara's Headquarters either. But Courser can be really good in these decks, and then maybe a wheel like an Unholy Heat or something. Or a Hexdrinker if people don't like it.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll take Courser of Crewfix here in our lands deck. What are the cards that we're looking for the absolute most? Strip Mine?
Strip Mine, and then Dark Depths Thespian Stage. Like you don't have either half, which is a little concerning, but being able to crop rotate for them is such a big upside. Oracle Moldai is also a really nice one if you can find that.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites.
What about Nothing instead?
Next pack comes up and it's kind of a nothing burger. Flicker Wisp, Karn Scion of Urza, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, Lotus Petal, Boros Signet Adanto Vanguard, Kolagon's Command. Bummer.
All right, I know what I'd taken. It's kind of a weird one.
Okay, I'm looking right now.
I can give you 2 guesses.
Entomb.
Yep, nailed it.
You want to try to dig up one of those lands, right?
If you get like Strip Mine or if you get Light from the Loam, you can Entomb for those for good value.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is like a pure upside pick, right? It's just like if we end up with all the things and Entomb's actually a card.
Yeah, and this pack is all garbage.
Yes. There are powerful magic cards. Like, I love me a Kolagon's Command, but boy, not for us.
No, really not the deck for that.
Okay, next pack comes up, and we got Eternal Witness, Mox Diamond. There's one.
See, you have 2 cards I really want, which is Omnath, Locus of Creation, and Mox Diamond.
Yeah.
I might take Mox Diamond because Omnath does wheel, and Mox Diamond with Ren and 6 is really strong.
It really is.
Also, this deck, a little more acceleration never hurt. And then if you wheel Omnath or Eternal Witness, but hopefully Omnath, you'll be fine. Plus, this is a pretty strong pack, so I wouldn't be surprised if it did come back around.
Okay. Have you played against Retrofitter Foundry much?
It's fine if you can make use of like little creatures or artifacts like Recurring Nightmare, Skull Clamp, or you're like a Tinker deck or something. It's not good enough without combos, but it is. So it's a 1-mana artifact, 2 tap, make a 1/1. You can pay 3 to untap it. Then you can pay like 3 and tap and sack the 1/1 to make a 1/1 flying, and then you can tap it and sack the 1/1 flying to make a 4/4.
Yeah, it's 2 to make a 1/1, 1 tap sack to make the flyer, and then sack a Thopter to make a 4/4. Ooh, there's a Wasteland.
Wasteland and Dark Depths.
And Dark Depths here too.
And Ragavan. Ragavan is just such a busted card. Wow.
Oh, Ragavan. Oh man.
This has a lot of the stuff you want. I might just take the Wasteland here.
Try to wield Depths. I mean, you either completely don't. It's either stone unplayable or you really want it.
Yeah, but Wasteland is just solid here, especially with Ren and 6.
Yeah,
and you have Entomb, and also Life from the Loam is not a card people typically fight over. Same with Ramanop Excavator, and so wouldn't be surprised if you were able to pick one of those up kind of late.
Yeah, we did not wield the Crucible, which is of note.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take Wasteland. Ooh, there's Horizon Canopy. That can be a combo for us. There's Thragtusk, Oseju Who Endures the land.
Yeah, Oseju is not bad as a disenchant land, especially with Ren and 6. You can kind of keep buying it back. Mm-hmm. I think I like it a little more than Horizon Canopy in terms of lands that do things.
Okay. That's a cool addition to the cube. But when I first saw that card, I thought, yeah, that'll go good in Vintage Cube. It's very, artifact and sometimes enchantment centric, the cube.
Can even blow up random non-basics like Raging Ravine or something like that.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Run them out.
Yeah, there's some good action there. And then Thragtusk is just fine.
Yeah.
Thragtusk, Lightning Helix, Firebolt. If you wheel any one of those, you'll be pretty happy as additional aggro protection. But I think I would take Poseidon to start with here.
Okay, we'll take that. What's up next? Green Sun, Zenith, Sneak Attack, Mishra's Factory. Yikes.
I think it's between Green Sun, Zenith, and Sneak Attack. You don't have anything to combo Sneak right now, so obviously that's not ideal. But you could pick something up. Sneak is just such a good card that it's strong to do that. But I don't know. Green Sun's it's a 2-mana accelerant when you get Arbor Elf. You can get Scavenging Ooze on 3 or Courser on 4 mana. Those are all pretty good. And then it scales up over time as you find more green creatures. So I feel like you'd prefer the Green Suns here.
Okay. I think I would go for Sneak Attack just because it's like halfway through pack 2 and we could pick up some stupid stuff. But it is a bit of an off-ramp for what we're doing. Like it doesn't actually fit if we start taking 10 drops or whatever. So I'm with you. So we take Green Sun, Zenith. We got Bazaar of Baghdad. There's also Ancient Tomb still in the pack, and as well as Sundering Titan, Burst Lightning.
Ancient Tomb. Let me see. What does this cast? Cast Lelia. Green Sun's really well. Doesn't really cast your other cards very well.
No, we have Courser and Ren and 6 and a bunch of 1-drops.
You could Burst Lightning just because I've been going up on like cheap interaction lately. I don't really think I'd Manamorphose here. Inspiring Vantage isn't crazy, but I don't think you need it. I think I would just Burst Lightning. When you play against Mono White, Mono Red, or Mono Green, it's great against all 3 of those decks.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take Burst Lightning. Next pack comes out, and another kind of disappointing one. There is a Nissa Vastwood Seer here that we can dig up some lands with. Goblin Rabblemaster.
Yeah, I like Nissa. Nissa's pretty strong. And you have Green Suns. It's a good late game Green Suns target, right? You have 6 lands in play. You Green Suns for Nissa, you can flip right away.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll take Nissa Vastwood Seer. So right now our deck is primarily green: Arbor Elf, Crop Rotation, Utopia Sprawl, Scavenging Ooze, Courser, Nissa, and Zenith. Boy, we did get the Wasteland, but we would love to see like Dark Depths Wheel or another combo piece or something. Oh, the Hex Drinker did come back.
Oh, so nice. That's a good one. Yeah.
And the Unholy Heat. Wow, everything came back.
Yeah, Burst Lightning means you probably don't need to take Heat, and I've been really impressed with Hex Drinker.
Me too.
The card looked like kind of terrible, but then I lost to it enough that I started playing it, and it was good.
Yeah, that's what I did too. Because I mean, it's simple. Like I can't tell you how many times I've had a Hex Drinker and just gone, oh, I hope they just don't dump all their mana over the next 3 turns into that thing because I can't beat it, and then they do, and yeah, then you lose. Okay, next up, Goblin Guy. The Kolagon's Command is still here. Vanguard.
You're not really going to play any of these cards. I mean, you could take K Command, take Adonto Vanguard. These are all fine.
Take a Kolaghan's command. All right, Taiga Wield.
All right, so Dark Depths didn't, but we didn't have. The thing is, we didn't have stage, and Vampire
Right.
Hexmage was going to be hard to play, so I'm not too broken up about it. Taiga's a great pickup. I mean, it makes your Misty into red. It also is just the land you want in your red-green deck. So
totally, that was good. Oh, this was the next pack. Dark Depths is actually still here.
Oh, slam it then. I thought the Taiga was.
I did too. It was Raging Ravine that was next to it.
All right, well that's what it was. But either way, taking depths. I mean, if in pack 3 Thespian Stage shows up, this deck's going to be a monster.
Come on, one time. Oh, Thragtusk came back too.
Yeah, that's a good pickup here.
Take that. And then a Magda? Is a Magda?
I don't think you'd play Magda, but
okay, no Magda for us. And then an Abbot of Carol Keep. All right, come on, baby. Strip Mine.
Strip Mine would be amazing here. We're red-green lands with like Ren and 6 and Courser and.
Okay, so instead we open Volcanic Island, Caracas, Blood Crypt for lands. There is a Skull Clamp here, Ignoble Hierarch, which would go well.
I think I would just take Caracas over
That's what I feel
Clamp,
too.
Uro, Ignoble Hierarch, Nissa,
It's
Volcanic.
so good with crop rotation against some decks, right?
Yeah, and you have Lelia and Nissa to protect as well.
Yeah, right. Okay, Caracas will work. That's a powerful land. It's not quite Strip Mine, but in some situations it's pretty good.
Yeah. We can get a Strip Mine. I think it's realistic to think that you could see it in the first 2 to 3 picks.
Yeah.
So we've got a shot or two here.
Yeah, remember this is powered, so people do open a Mox and they'll pass some cards like Strip Mine, right? That happens. What do we want to wheel here? The Ignoble Hierarch, Nissa who shakes the world.
Uro would actually be kind of interesting, though your mana's really red, green, white. You don't have a lot of I guess you have a 1 Misty and a Prismatic Vista.
Right.
I like Uro in the really land heavy decks with you get to make those extra land drops.
Okay. Next
also
pick.
Caracas Uro is a nice combo.
Next one comes out. Here's Zeotora's Proving Ground. This is the Jund Triland. There's Demonic Tutor, one of my favorites, Urza, Lord High Artificer, but I think probably not going to be able to do that. Steam Vents. Oh, there's Life from the Loam. Steep to the Wilds.
I think I would take Demonic Tutor because you're going to wheel Life from the Loam almost guaranteed. And if you can just find Thespian Stage, and at this point, Strip Mine is becoming less and less likely, but you could get a 7th pick Thespian Stage easily. No one else is going to take it in this entire draft. All you just needed is for it to be opened. And having a Demonic Tutor would be really nice, especially since we can pretty much rely on wheeling the Loam given how good this pack is. There's Steam Vents, a Triland, Urza, Glorybringer, Incinerate, Chromox, History of Benalia. These are all cards people tend to take.
Yeah, people like Batterskull for some reason.
Batterskull, sure.
Yeah.
Well, if they have Stoneforge, it's okay, but yeah.
All right, Demonic Tutor.
Yeah.
In. This is our second copy of Strip Mine that we just haven't quite.
Well, we do have the Wasteland. There's some decks where Wasteland can really do good work.
So there's actually 2 Trilands here, Rafine's Tower and Xander's Lounge. Also, there's Elvish Reclaimer and Exploration.
I think I would lean towards taking Reclaimer and trying to wheel Exploration or that Mizium Mortars. Both of those would be fine.
Okay. Where are you at on Elvish Reclaimer?
I really only play it if I have good lands to get. So, you can get right now Caracas and Wasteland. Those are both pretty appealing, and we're still kind of hoping that this depths thing works out. We got a couple more packs, right? This is pick 3, so 5 more packs to maybe pick this up. I love this deck. This is the kind of deck I like. Plus, you can Green Suns for Reclaimer pretty cheaply.
Oh, yeah.
And with 3 fetches and a Wasteland, this deck can also get Reclaimer up to a 3/4 fairly quickly as well.
Next pack has some stuff. There's a Breeding Pool, Overgrown Tomb, Augur of Autumn.
It's all Shocklands and Planeswalkers.
It is, yeah. There's also Liliana, Tezzeret, Garrick, Toretti. Hey, there's the Stoneforge as well. Is Augur of Autumn on your radar here?
Yeah, Augur's good. It lets you play lands off the top, and if you get 3 creatures in play with different power, you can start playing creatures off the top too. Not that this deck's super creature heavy.
Right.
I think it's basically between Augur of Autumn and Overgrown Tomb. So Overgrown Tomb makes both Misty and Wooded into black sources, which seems pretty good. I think I would just take the Tomb here. Yeah,
that does seem really. We have Demonic Tutor and Entomb that we would like to get in here.
Yeah, I think Entomb is going to be good enough if you can wheel Loam.
Okay, next pack comes up. Grim Monolith,
Nothing.
Underground Sea, a couple of elves, Fintorn elves, and Devoted Druid, but none of the heavy hitters that we really wanted to see there.
No, I don't think you're going to play any of these cards, really. Like, you don't really want mono green elves. That's not really what this deck's doing. You're not ramping, so you don't have Grim Monolith as a real good option either.
Yeah, this is kind of depressing pack, actually.
I mean, you could take, like, Blood Chief's Thirst, or maybe just... the thing is, Thundermaw, I don't even like because you kind of want your high-end stuff to also be fetchable by Green Sun Zenith.
Yeah, totally. Ugh.
I mean, I guess you could take the Fintorn elves and... just go. I don't think the Underground Sea even does anything. You have no blue cards. Like,
no. Oh, man, that's depressing. It's probably going to make the cut, too, because we're on 10 lands. We have 17. Make that 18 non-lands now. All right, next one comes out. Oh, interesting. There's Field of the Dead. There's also Zagoth Triome here, Deranged Hermit. Are we a Field of the Dead deck? Like, we do have 10 non-basics right now that we're running all of.
I'm willing to have you try it.
Or I shouldn't say all of. We do have Dark Depths in there, but there's 9, and this will be 10 with Field of the Dead. Just to recap, we have, again, 10 non-basics and fetch lands and duels and stuff, and then we've got Mox Diamond, Entomb, Burst Lightning, Arbor Elf, Crop Rotation, Elvish Reclaimer, currently Fintorn Elves, Hex Drinker, Utopia Sprawl, Demonic Tutor, Scavenging Ooze, Renin 6, currently Recruiter of the Guard, Lelia, Nissa, Vastwood Seer, Courser, Thrag Tusk, and Green Sun's Zenith. And the next pack comes up. Dryad of the Elusian Grove, Indatha Triome, Elvish Mystic, Bayou.
There's also Leovold.
Oh, Leovold. Maybe we do have room for blue.
That makes it a little bit more appealing. Yeah, you could probably run Leovold here.
I love Leovold.
It's good with Caracas, too.
Oh, yeah, good with Caracas. We got the...
Makes me wish you took the Underground Sea, but honestly, that wouldn't have even added a blue source because Misty Rainforest can already get blue. So just one island already gives you 3 blue sources plus Mox Diamond plus Utopia Sprawl if you really need to, or Crop Rotation, though that's obviously a little on the desperate side.
Right. Okay, we'll take Leovold.
Also, I don't think you're even playing any white cards.
Yeah, I currently have Recruiter of the Guard, but that's not actually like...
So we're not getting Dark Depths or Strip Mine this draft.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is our last pre-wheel pick here, and it's got Hero of Bladehold, Iona, Imperial Recruiter, Magus of the Order, Smuggler's Copter, Tanglewire, Tolarian Academy, and Vindicate.
You could maybe Smuggler's Copter here.
Sure. It's probably actually pretty good in this deck, right?
You have a lot of creatures, as it turns out.
Yeah, and also like with Renin 6 to get stuff back, like that's not the worst. Okay, I'll take Smuggler's Copter. All right, well, we did wheel the Ignoble Hierarch, as well as Skull Clamp and Blood Crypt.
I don't think you need Blood Crypt. You can't even afford to take another land here. Yeah, I think the Hierarch's fine.
What do you think about Skull Clamp?
It does not look quite good enough to me.
Yeah, we have 11 creatures total.
But you also don't even really want to play Recruiter of the Guard, I don't think. It doesn't...
No.
Well, maybe you would. It can get... Oh, Toughness. It can't get Courser.
No, it can't get Courser. It can't get Leovold.
Loam did wheel.
Okay, so Loam wheel. There's also Escape to the Wilds, which I like, but Loam's better here, right?
I think so. You have Wasteland and a bunch of fetches, and you have a couple ways to discard. So,
is there any other way to get Dark Depths?
No, I mean there's Vampire Hexmage, but we don't have that either.
Okay, so that's kind of off the menu.
Yeah, Dark Depths is done.
Okay, Life from the Loam. And then a bunch of jank here to kind of finish things off. Elspeth, Sun's Champion, Figure of Destiny, Lion Sash, Palancron, and Skyclave Shade. Just a bunch of nothings.
Entomb for Skyclave Shade? I don't do that.
Well, we're not doing anything with these.
Oh, Lingering Souls is actually kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah. Entomb for Lingering Souls? Yeah, dredge it. What do you think about Garrick Relentless?
I would take Lingering Souls. I like Lingering Souls.
All right, we'll take it. And then the last couple of picks here.
Grim Monolith, 3 cards left in the pack.
That is bizarre, actually. I think I'm just going to take Blood Chiefs first. Sideboard. And then Deranged Hermit, which I don't... Wow, last pick by you? Okay, sure.
All right, we'll take it.
All right, so now we have to build this thing. So here's the first question. Do you count Mox Diamond as a land?
No, I tend to count it as a spell.
Okay. Then we're at 23. Now, we do have some options. We've got Toski, Pelucranos, and Whisperwood Elemental in just straight up green that we could put in if we want.
Kind of looking at that Toski with these like loam tokens.
With these what?
Oh, sorry, Lingering Souls tokens.
Oh, with Lingering. I like it. We also have no 4-drops, so Toski would be the one.
Yeah, maybe take out Deranged Hermit and play Toski. I don't think Deranged Hermit with no combos. I get that Toski's a combo with it, but the curve doesn't work the way you really want. So
right, exactly.
You could also probably K-command at this point. Your colors ended up going kind of all over.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Maybe take Scavenging Ooze out.
There was another... We also have the second elf that... Like, we have Findhorn elves. Oh. Or even Arbor Elf. Oh, I guess Arbor Elf's better.
Yeah, Arbor Elf is good with Utopia Sprawl. The only way Arbor Elf gets you is you have one copy of Beside You. That if that was your only green with Arbor Elf, you would get screwed. But otherwise...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can take out Findhorn elves. You've got... I don't think you need the third elf. You've got right now Ignoble... Yeah, that's actually fourth, because you have Utopia Sprawl, Ignoble Hierarch, and Arbor Elf.
Right. Okay, so here's our deck. It's Mox Diamond and Tomb, Burst Lightning, Arbor Elf, Crop Rotation, Elvish Reclaimer, Hex Drinker, Ignoble Hierarch, Utopia Sprawl. For 2s, it's Demonic Tutor, Life from the Loam, Scavenging Ooze, Renin 6, Smuggler's Copter. 3s is Lingering Souls, Lelia, Nissa, Courser of Krufix, Leovold, Kolagon's Command. 4 is Toski, Bearer of Secrets. 5 is Thragtusk, and then we have a Green Sun Zenith to round out the party here. And then for lands, we ended up with Bayou, Beseju, Field of the Dead, which we're going to try, Caracas, Misty Rainforest, Overgrown Tomb, Plateau. Although, do we need the plateau at all?
Yeah, you have Lingering Souls. Plus, with,
right. And then
with the Field of the Dead, we kind of want all the names.
Of course. Prismatic Vista, Taiga, Wasteland, and Wooded Foothills. So if we put those in, that leaves us 6 land slots.
I think you probably don't need a Plains.
Green is going to be the focal point here, but do you think we need a Plains?
No, I would play 1 island, 2 forests, and then 1 swamp, 1 mountain. 6. You actually can play 3 forests. There we go.
All right. There's our deck.
This is the kind of deck that, had you found a Thespian Stage and a Strip Mine, either of them or both, this deck I think would be very good. As is, it's not very good.
It's just mediocre, right?
I mean, this is kind of the fun of Cube. Like, we kind of went all in on let's get one of these 2 lands, one of which no one on the table is going to take if they see it, right? Like, no one's going to take Thespian Stage, and it's possible someone took it in the first 7 picks that we didn't see in one of the earlier packs. I think that's unlikely, given that Dark Depths came back so late. They would have taken it. So it just probably wasn't open. And then Strip Mine someone probably just took if it was open, because obviously that card's just very good.
Right.
But had we gotten one of those 2, I think this deck would have been very strong. As is, it's not very good, but it looks like it'll be pretty fun still.
Okay, so there you go. There's our Cube Draft. And if you wanted to try to keep up, because obviously Cube Draft over audio only is kind of expert level, right? Like, if you haven't played the Cube very much, it's going to be really hard to keep up because we just can't read every card. There's way too much text on everything. But if you were listening and kind of going, yeah, that was cool, but I couldn't quite keep up, this is in video form as well. So head over to the LR YouTube channel and you can watch this whole episode. We put up all of our episodes on the YouTube channel as well, just to make them easier to find for people and that kind of thing. But that particularly is good when we do things like this, because you can actually watch us draft and follow along as we go. Why don't we call it a show there as we say goodbye to Baldur's Gate. Hello to Cube, and hello to Dominaria United coming up soon. I'm hoping for set review next week. We'll have to see when the cards are actually fully out and what our schedule looks like, but hopefully we can work something out with that. It's time. It is time for a new set, and I know I'm looking forward to it as well as you are. Okay, so that's going to be it for this show. If you want to find us on social media, I'm Marshall_LR and Luis is LSV. You can find everything related to the show at lrcast.com. I want to thank our sponsors, Channel Fireball and FTX, for their continued sponsorship of the show. And with that, we'll see you next week.
All right. So if I detail what happened over the last couple weeks, it's going to sound like I'm making things up, but I'm going to give you the rundown anyway.
Okay.
So we were supposed to fly to Ecuador for a trip, and on Friday of 2.5 weeks ago, I guess almost 3 weeks ago, and then our son Santi, we had to take him to the ER because he was having trouble breathing. It was very scary, but it turned out it was croup, kind of common like viral infection. And they kept him overnight, but he was okay. So we're like, okay, well, it's clearly not leaving on Friday, right? This was Wednesday night. We rescheduled the trip to Monday after talking to his pediatrician, who was like, you can definitely go. This thing passes quickly. I'm comfortable with you going. In fact, I encourage you to go. We're like, okay, great. Sunday night, I'm recording a cons draft actually in my office downstairs. And I start hearing a drip. And this is during a huge storm, which I'm like, wow, this storm's just incredible. What's going on? Uh-huh. And I look over and our window well is leaking because there's water filling up. And what a window well is, for those who don't have basements, probably most of the West Coast, or people who live below the water table or what have you. Mm-hmm. It's in order to have a bedroom downstairs, which the office technically is, you have to have basically like a open space where there's like a window plus like a kind of cylinder that goes up to the surface level with a ladder. So if there was a fire on the stairs in the basement, you wouldn't be trapped. You could go out the window and climb up the ladder to outside, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it started filling up with water. And I was like, what the hell? So I like put some towels on the windowsill to try to like stop it, run upstairs, and it's just a raging torrent of water. Couldn't stop it. And I realized, of course, that eventually this window well is going to fill with water enough that the pressure is going to break the window. So I start grabbing my magic cards, my computer, the original art for like Ambush Viper and Goblin Side, all the stuff that was in the basement that we didn't want to lose.
Yeah, of course.
And I got out of there because then eventually it did. We heard a huge crash and the window shattered, right, because of all the pressure.
Wow. It's incredible because it doesn't look like it. Like you're used to looking at water in like a aquarium that's built for that, but like that weight adds up huge. That's crazy.
Oh, totally. So this was like Sunday night, or flights in 8 hours, and it's just a huge mess. It floods the basement. Obviously we like cancel the flight. We get like an emergency water damage restoration place in. They come in right away and they start vacuuming up the water because the storm didn't stop. And they, and then they told us like, look, this is category 3 water. It's got runoff from the ground, right? It's like pesticides and dog poop and who knows what else. Like it's anything that like you can't wash off that it gets into, you need to throw away, basically.
Oh my God.
So turns out basically had to cut the drywall from like 2 feet down, and anything under that line, that we couldn't save. And we spent some time like taking out stuff that was on the walls. Like luckily my trophies were safe. And also things that it took a lot of trips though to get the trophies out. It was a real pain, but anything you could like wash off, but like, daughter's playroom is down there, all of her toys. We had just like a ton of stuff, our board games, like all these Ultimate Guard, sleeves and boxes. Like they're a great sponsor, by the way. And just all this stuff, like a bunch of Gabby's plushies and all these like knickknacks and cool stuff she'd collected that was in our office, right? That was our stream room. I had the foresight to grab the router and the modem and bring those up, because that would have been like a whole nother thing. But so end of all this, like we just like our basement gets totaled, and it took weeks, but they were able to get everything out and get these giant fans in that were running 24 hours a day and disinfect it with like antimicrobial stuff. And like now we have a clean, unfinished basement. Okay. I mean, $25,000 later or whatever. So, and then of course insurance, like we didn't have flood insurance and this was technically a flood. So that was just kind of right out of the pocketbook.
Oh my God.
And then had to also get the storm drain replaced and like had to have contractors dig up the side of our house and the yard there and all that. And like, so it's just like all that stuff. And then just like to add like little like minor insult to injury, it's like the one of our adapter cables to our router stopped working. So we like internet was sporadic until we had to order a new one. And like, it was basically just all this terrible luck compressed into like a 1 week period, and Gabby's uncle passed away, who was in Ecuador, and we would have seen had we made our original trip date. It's just
Are you serious?
Yeah. So it was like a bunch of stuff that you could reasonably expect to happen once every year to 2 years in terms of bad luck. And like the basement flood was really bad. Of course, her uncle really close with passing away, really bad. All happened within like a week. And it was just like,
this is incredible.
So, and then, I also I was, in round 2 of a draft I was recording that was going to be really good. So
that's what you're worried about.
Oh yeah, but yeah. So overall, it's been a stretch that has not been very fun to put it lightly. But I got to practice what I preach. Like, we know that this kind of stuff can happen. The fact that it all happened at once it sucks. It's unfortunate, but we're in a position to be able to take the steps we need to make the stuff better. And now we have our basement back, we have our basement not toxic. It's not back yet. We still have to do that part, but we're at least that's stable now, and we now have a working storm drain, and there's more details there I can get to at some point in the future. But yeah, so it's been a exciting couple weeks. Instead of a nice 2-week vacation, I took a hellish 2 weeks of having a lot of stuff I had to do. So I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be on the show, and I'm hoping this buys me a lot of luck in the both short and long term here, because it's got to balance out, right?
Well, let's just say you should think twice about taking a vacation from the show again.
Oh, that's the one. Okay. Yeah.